Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. I'm super hyped up about this movie. And the first question I have for both of you is, what was the most enjoyable part of filming this movie? Because it just looks crazy on the trailers and everything. What was the most enjoyable part for you guys?
I mean, when you got a film like this that has so much heart, so much action, and adventure, for me, the best part is just getting into the meat and potatoes of the action sequences. When you start doing the running, the shooting of the guns, the killing of the aliens, that to me is when I'm having the most fun.
Yeah, that led to a lot of exhaustion though, a lot of pulled muscles, and feeling like a sack of potatoes, just dead weight on most days. It was grueling. It was a grueling process, but it was one that was definitely fun, enjoyable, and I'll do it again.
Yeah. Do you guys enjoy doing? I know you can't do all of your stunts, but when you do some of it and you really get into it, do you enjoy it? You feel like you're even more part of the movie when you're like, hey, I'm jumping out this window myself.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I especially loved it when I was a little bit younger. It's like now I get out of bed and my knees are cracking, and where I once had abs, now I have like some mashed potatoes. So I like it a little bit less now than I used to, but I still show up for the challenge and I still get it done.
One thing I'm curious about, the concept of the movie is, you're in today's time and then you're going forward in time. When you're acting like in that forward period, do you like, hey, how would it be in 2085 or, do you think like that? Like, what would someone from the future, your future, how would you, when you acting like it, or is that something that the director helps with? How do you kind of get in that mindset? It's like, it's not the same as 2021. I'm in the future now.
That's a great question. It's a really good question. I think, a lot of that has to do with the directors. And for us, we want, like you said, the movie does take place in 2021 and also 2051. And so for us, we are characters from 2021. So when we transport to 2051, there's not that big of a change for us because we have like about a 10 or 11 day limited sequence in the future. However, the people who come back are products of the future. Yeah. So that conversation was had between Chris McKay and all of the actors who are of that like younger generation, the people who came back. And I think that was just really expressed. A lot of it's expressed in the casting and like looking at people and saying like, do they look like 2021 or do they look like 2051? And I think we did a pretty good job of casting what looks like what you can expect of 2051.
Now, I know you guys are both sports fans. Now, for Chris, you didn't get Julio Jones for your Seahawks, I heard.
Dude,
so how do you feel about that? And I know you're Edwin, you're a Spurs fan.
Yes, I am.
Didn't make the playoffs, but so for Chris, how did it feel not getting Julio? And Edwin, do you think you got? Is it over? Is the dynasty over for you guys?
No. As long as we got Pop, we fine. And then whoever his predecessor is going to be, we're going to be fine too. We got to retune the engine. That's all. That's just it. I mean, look at the Lakers. They out. They got to retune. So, at the end of the day, that's the game. You're putting your premier athletes on stage, and it's going to be a fight. To the title. So, hey, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. The idea is that you got to pick yourself back up and try it all over again.
Yeah, and I'd say for the Seahawks fans, I mean, the rumors of Julio Jones coming to Seattle were out there, and it did get me excited. And now he's in Tennessee, which is already a dangerous team with Derrick Henry, and now they have AJ Brown, and they get to add Julio Jones, and so yeah, that's tough. But at the same time, we've got a finite amount of capital, and we still have DK Metcalf, we still have Ty Lock. I mean, we've got Russell Wilson, and I think it might be better served to put money around and in place of giving us some defenders and giving us a strong O-line so we can go into the season and let Russ be healthy all season, let Russ cook. So I'm excited for the season coming up. I'm really grateful to have Wilson at quarterback, and I hope they just let him cook and do his thing.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I know you're busy. I'm looking forward to the movie. I know it's going to be great. You guys be safe out there, and talk to you soon.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Robert Littal from BlackSportsOnline.com, and I am in the building. Well, not quote the building with Sam Richardson, one of the stars of the movie. Sam, my first question to you is this: this is a big star-studded, cast. What was it like to be in there with the Chris Pratts of the world and all of that? Like, how did you feel when you first said, "Hey, man, this is big"?
Well, I'll tell you what, like the whole time, like the stakes of that movie were so big. It was incredible to get to be like, I'm a big fan of action movies, a big fan of sci-fi movies. So the idea of like getting to do one of those anyway was huge to me. And you get to be like the comedy relief person in that kind of helped me feel like I had like a reason to be there, But then also like to get to do a movie like that, first off, next to Chris Pratt, who's also very funny. He was like a brilliant comedy actor, but then also a huge action sci-fi movie star. So like to get to like link up to him and get to do his movie like that was like a great way to like get to experience this movie. Then getting to work with JK and Yvonne and all that, like just I had to make sure I was not being a kid watching a movie. I had to make sure I was like in it and like doing the movie.
Being a sci-fi fan, when you first saw, say, the Alien and what it was going to look like, what was your, reaction to that? Because I know in sci-fi movies, they can make or break the movie,
Break it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what was your thought when you saw it first?
When I first saw the thing, I was like, I was legitimately scared of it.
God, it's a good thing.
And then that made me relieved because I was like, well, okay, we got this thing. It's like you said, it makes or breaks a movie, a sci-fi movie, especially when like the idea of like the whole premise is that these things are what we're fighting, what we're afraid of. To see it and like because we saw an early render of it, so we got to see what like a CGI. I mean the look of like the thing like moving and like attacking, and we're like, that's legit scary. I'm afraid of it. So and then like also seeing it, we got to see like a animatronic version of it as well. Every time equally scary.
Wow, so, that's great. That's good. I think that's very good to hear. One thing though, you talk a lot of sci-fi movies or movies that have the scary, they're very serious. They're very serious, and it's I guess a fine line between keeping that fear factor, that horror factor, that action factor, but also putting that comic relief where it doesn't seem corny, I guess, so to speak.
Right.
I shouldn't really be scared of this because everybody's laughing and stuff. How did you kind of bridge that, that nuance acting, which I know that you're very good at?
Oh, thank you very much. I felt that like the comedy that comes in this movie and the comedy that I bring to it is in like the fear of what's happening. You know what I mean? It's Charlie, like his comedy lines come from the fact that he's terrified a lot. And he's like, I don't think I can survive this. I don't know what I'm doing here, which I feel like is identifiable. It's easy to identify with as like watching the movie, because you're like, if Sam Richardson got sent to a war in the future, and they were like, you've got a week to train and now you're gonna go and fight these aliens, I'd be like, no, y'all, I'm done. You've killed me. But so I think that sort of thing, but he's just a little bit more witty in the moment, and also all his emotions are on his sleeve. So I think that that helps to ground the movie more than anything, and it works as a release valve, a pressure release valve, so that you're having all these stakes and all these things happen, and like as an audience, you just like, ooh, you need that little bit of relief so you can like fill back up on suspense as you go.
What's interesting. A lot of sci-fi movies happen in the future. Some of the good ones kind of play with the past and the future, going back and forth. How did you kind of, handle that aspect of it? I think that's a very unique part of the movie.
I think so too, and I think even the whole premise of like people from the present having to fight a war in the future is it was such an interesting. It was one of the interesting things that made me like want to sign on to it. The idea that these people who are unprepared also to deal with this threat are now the front line of it was a really cool concept. I think also thing in sci-fi movies and sci-fi action movies about time jumping is about like, what are the tools that you have to deal with something. So if it's that you're coming from the future to the past, and like, what tools do you have? We're coming from the past to the future. What do you have? And like, and now you're dealing with these extraordinary circumstances that you don't have experience with. You know, I think that's a cool concept of these movies.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I'm a big fan. I think you're hilarious and everything. So I know you're gonna do great in this movie, and I think you're gonna steal the show. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys very much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Now, the first question that I had for you for this movie, a big, aliens, extraterrestrials, back and forth time travel. What was the most enjoyable part of filming for both of you guys, considering how big of a scope this movie was?
Just being in the world. We got to be badasses in this amazing sci-fi, world and story where, we're time jumping to fight a war in the future. And I just thought it's so cool to see yourself in that setting and see yourself in that world, and just to see the world in general, and seeing like the creative, like the design of the aliens. It's a lot. I really like.
Yeah, I think being in the world and also being able to play a Black woman who is able to like stand fully in her power without the threat of racism or sexism, like at her back, she really have full permission to be a leader without being threatened.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, Jasmine, is because it is a time jump, and obviously we know what is happening in 2021 and what has happened in our country, over all of those years. That's kind of a really cool thing. So when you get that script and you see, okay, I'm in 2051 and this is what, America's like now, say it's the aliens and everything, is that something where like in the back of your mind, you hope when people are watching all of the explosions and fights that they see that as well, what we could be, as a country?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something that I kept thinking about too, filming. The thing that I took away most is that if everybody can dedicate and focus themselves on one mission, say to eradicate racism, everybody has a part to play, just like everybody in this film has a role to play in order to save the world. If we can focus on one mission and play our parts individually, we can do it,
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you guys first saw the alien, the creature, and however with designs or however they showed it to you, what was your reaction? Because I know in movies that have the aliens and that type of stuff, sometimes no matter what else is going on, if the alien is not hitting right, everybody kind of shines everything out. But if that alien is that monster, you think about the movie Alien, you think about Independence Day, any type Friday the 13th, stuff like that. When the horror hits, it really has an effect on people. When you guys saw it, what did you think?
I was like, thank God. Like, it's cool. The alien is cool. And I always talk about, the tentacles and how they shoot the spikes. And I just think that is just so unique and fire for an alien to do, like to have and to do. And as as you watch the film, you see the alien kind of evolve and you learn more and more about what this alien can do. And I think that is super cool.
Yeah, and I was just grateful that I've never seen the alien before, like in another movie or another film. It's so original and fresh. And I think that's really a draw to this movie as well, because you haven't seen anything like this before.
It's really an amazing cast. When they were showing us, and when I first said, man, this is all-star level here. This is, dream team. This is, Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Clay.
Come on.
How was it like, a Chris Pratt, a J.K. Simmons, yourself as well? How was it like interacting with that? Did you learn anything from it? Did they learn anything from you? How was it with that big ensemble, kind of cast?
So, it's a comforting feeling to me. I just think like when you're part of a cast like that, the leads usually you usually play up to the leads level. You know, coming in like me, of course, coming in as a supporting, it's like, okay, I got to raise my level, and it makes you come to work and really, you know, strive to be professional and just strive to, you know, reach the common goal. I think that's the beauty of having, you know, the big names on films, and especially the big names that are, especially when you got somebody like Chris Pratt that's actually a really down to earth type of dude and a real leader on set. It's not hard to follow the lead and do your part.
Yeah,
honestly.
agreed. And I think the cast is such an all-star cast that for a second it took me a second to just step back and say, hold on now, do I belong here? Like, you know, that fear of that doubt creeps in. And it being my first film, I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing here with all these amazing actors? But one thing about Chris Pratt being the leader that he is he will notice, you know, if you stumble a little bit, and he'll come up to you and say, hey, you belong here. Go do what you were hired to do. So just hearing that sort of reinforcement gave me the confidence and the courage to do what I needed to do and step up to the plate like I needed to. But this cast is incredible, like top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember when I first would do interviews like this, I would feel the exact same way. Like, I'm talking to Kevin Hart. I'm talking to Samuel Jackson. Oh my God, you know, I can't believe I'm doing this. Am I asking the right questions and everything? So that's really comforting thing to know that kind of happens to you guys as well. Well, I'm very excited about watching the movie. I appreciate you guys spending the time. I look forward to seeing how your parts evolve and bigger and better things for both of you as actor and actresses. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your support. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good one.